man, I wish I would have played baseball, especially as I see the salaries exploding and the league revenues growing from $3 million to $10 million over the last 20 years or so, which is a relevant stat. So keep that in mind as we start to dig into why I believe this deal is fantastic. Obviously, it's fantastic for Mike Trout, but also for the Los Angeles Angels. Now, the second thing I say is, God, there's just too much money in sports. How can you get this? CEOs don't make this much money. Fortune 500 companies that are pumping out products after products after products and lining shelves and making food or clothing or whatever it may be. The people who run these companies and in providing millions of dollars in revenue to their bottom line and increasing shareholder value and making millionaires out of other people don't make $36 million a year or have 12-year contracts for $430 million. It just doesn't make sense when I think about it. And then you start digging into the reasons why this happened. So there's an emotional reason, and then there's a financial reason. Which one should I start with? I think I'll start with the financial reason, because the financial reason is what people can dig into. When you look at how much money Bryce Harper or how much money Mike Trout is making and why this makes sense for the Angels, all you have to do is look at the money. In 2019, league revenues will be about $10.5 billion. $10.5 billion. It's short of what the NFL is doing, but it's catching up really quickly to the money of the NFL. Maybe not the popularity of the NFL, but the money of the NFL. Major League Baseball is catching up to. And when you look at the percentage of Mike Trout's contract relative to the overall pie in Major League Baseball, it's about 0.35%, which is small, but it is what it is. We're looking relative to the whole pie. So 0.35% of Major League Baseball total revenue goes to Mike Trout. Let's back up to when A-Rod signed that ridiculous deal back in 2000 with the Texas Rangers. 10 years, $252 million. His percentage of the whole pie at the time, which was about $3 billion, was 0.7% of the whole pie. So 0.7% to 0.35%. In a sense, the Angels got a steal with Bryce Harper relative to the total pie, the growing pie of Major League Baseball's revenue. But then let's dig in to the Los Angeles Angels themselves. The Los Angeles Angels have an enormous TV package out in L.A. Why? Because it's the second biggest media market in the country. It's a sports-loving area. You go to a baseball game because it's beautiful all the time in Los Angeles. And so they have a $3 billion TV package out in L.A. And of that $3 billion, about $150 million of it comes to them every single year, which is almost on par with what the Los Angeles Angels have for their entire payroll, including this new deal with Mike Trout. So in layman's term, before they open opening day of 2019, they're almost at break even, or basically at break even. Before they sell a ticket, before they sell a hat, before they sell more Mike Trout jerseys, before they sell beer and sodas and popcorn and pretzels and whatever else you get at a stadium, the Angels are basically break even. And Mike Trout is sustaining them through some of their lean years because he's so amazing of a baseball player. You'll show up to a ballpark kind of just to see Mike Trout. Now, he hasn't had the postseason success. I know that's what a lot of people point to. You've heard this repetitively all day. The best player in baseball has got to play in the postseason. It's a crime to Major League Baseball if the best player. No, it's not. Right? At the end of the day, baseball is a business. I believe in time, the Los Angeles Angels are working to get Mike Trout into the postseason. I think the winning of Shohei Ohtani last season was a big step in that direction. Their farm system, which has been historically horrendous, is slowly starting to get better. Their staff, which they haven't spent a lot of money on, but they could, because Artie Moreno, as we all know, as we just been explaining, has money to do so. But they've also been unlucky. A lot of the arms that they've had have gotten hurt. So in time, Mike Trout is going to be that postseason hero that we all want our superstars to be. It just hasn't happened yet. Let's not forget, he's only 26 years old or 27 years old. He's got the world in front of him. He's not going to slow down anytime soon. So to me, this deal makes all the sense in the world. More importantly, to me, the emotional side of this is why it makes so much sense. Look, we've seen athletes over the last decade and a half rise to stardom. It starts when they're 15 years old. They get a local newspaper, writes an article about them. Man, this is the best kid that I've ever seen dunk or throw a fastball or score a touchdown, whatever it may be. And then it slowly builds through his sophomore, his junior, senior season, and then he gets into college or goes straight to the major leagues or to the NBA through one and done in college basketball. And their egos are so inflated, partly because they have to be. In order to be great at anything, you got to be supremely and sublimely confident in yourself, almost to the point where it's annoying to others that you're so confident in your skills. But it works, right? And they find success in high school, then they find success in college, and they get to the professional level, and they find success. Unfortunately, this has coincided with a social media explosion where we crave and we thrive as consumers on the drama. Like, we need to know every little detail. Oh, who's he dating? Who's he going out with? Where did he eat dinner last night? Is he true to his girl? Is he not? Where's he spending his money on? What kind of car does he drive? Like, we're obsessed with what athletes' lives are like. And some of these athletes, they're buying into the fans' obsession. They post everything. Man, I'm eating my Wheaties for breakfast today. I'm going to switch it up tomorrow. I'm going to have Captain Crunch because I go back to my childhood. Captain Crunch was the you-know-what back in the day. So I'm getting back on my Captain Crunch. And fans get 150,000 likes on these things. You know who doesn't do this? Mike Trout. Mike Trout doesn't show us anything about him. In fact, Rob Manfred, when talking about Mike Trout and how amazing of a star he said, kind of took a shot at him. It is good for baseball to promote yourself, but you know who doesn't do it? Mike Trout. You know why? Because he doesn't need to. He's a lunch pail kid. He grabs his lunch pail, he goes, works his ass off, and goes and does his job. He doesn't complain. He doesn't try to be a diva. Even though the team around him, they haven't built the right kind of team around him for the majority of his 8 years there. Again, one postseason berth. They got swept through by the Royals. He was 1 for 12 in that series. But you don't see him complaining. You know what he does? He gets back to work and finishes top 1 or 2 in the MVP every single year, every single game. You know why it's worth it to me emotionally to pay Mike Trout $363 million in an extension and $430 million over 12 years? Because he wows you every single time he comes to the ballpark. Every single time you go to the ballpark, he wows you. There's one thing that I've always thought about athletes, and this comes from playing, it comes from watching athletics and athletes all over the course of my life and career, is that guys that you can count on are the guys you want on your team. The guy who doesn't shut it down simply because he feels sick, or the guy who doesn't get emotionally mad at himself because he messed up in the field, but the guy who picks himself up, who comes to the show every day and does his job. You know who else does that, interestingly? The New England Patriots. It's actually their motto. Do your job. Mike Trout does his job for a business in MLB that is increasingly growing in revenues, even though some of the attendance and some of the smaller non-competitive parks are declining. In a huge media market for an owner who embraced him, who's keeping him as an angel for the rest of his career, and that feels good in and of itself. The money says one thing, and the money says he actually might be underpaid, making $430 million. But it's the emotional side of it that makes me love this deal even more. But it also makes me ask the question, if the Phillies sold Bryce Harper on the fact that they were going to go get another superstar, and the reason that your deal is sub $30 million a year is because we need to save space to go get the next stud or another stud to sit alongside of you. And so as I sit and we marvel at this $430 million that Mike Trout is going to get over the next 12 years, I wonder if Bryce Harper is having signer's regret right now. Probably not, because the Phillies have enough of a team built around him to be viable, and they feel exciting, and they're on the come and things of that nature. But I think Bryce got into the mindset that we started to see in the basketball world, where you sign a big deal and you commit yourself to one team, and Bryce Harper is committed to the Philadelphia Phillies for the rest of his career. That's one of the reasons he said it took so long. And once you do that, you start saying, okay, how can we, or I, win a championship? How can I get to the postseason and be spectacular and drive up my brand and drive up the popularity of the team that I'm with, and by extension me, and we're going to be living the high life? Do it like the NBA does it. The NBA has guys that hang out in the offseason on banana boats, and they craft ideas on what team they're going to play for. I think Bryce Harper might have been trying to do that. Obviously, he was trying to do that. Why so blatantly? That was his introductory press conference. That wasn't like a week and a half later. That was when he first got introduced to as a Philadelphia Philly, a new Philadelphia Philly. The one thing that he's thinking about is who else he's going to bring to join him. So I think Bryce Harper is probably the most disappointed man in baseball right now. Obviously, there's other guys out there. Aaron Judge will come up at some point, and some others, but there's not a ton of them that are going to be free. Manny Machado is in San Diego for probably the rest of his career. Nelson Arenado, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. Nolan Arenado is not going anywhere anytime soon. Like, who's he going to pair himself with right now? It's interesting when you think about this. The backstories of the stories that are not being told, behind the scenes with the Philadelphia Phillies and the Los Angeles Angels. But again, at the end of the day, I think this is a great deal for Mike Trout. I think it's a great deal for the Angels. And I'm wondering if Bryce Harper's quasi-tampering with Mike Trout is what ultimately got this thing done sooner rather than later. I think the answer would be yes.